Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. So let's say you stop believing in God, or maybe you never really did, even though you went through the motions. You're trying to figure out a way to tell your family without blowing up all of your relationships or every holiday gathering. This video might be for you. I get the question a lot, how do I explain to my religious family that I am no longer religious? Either I'm not in that religion anymore, or maybe I never really believed in the first place. Either way, the fear of how they're going to respond weighs heavily on people. When you've made the decision to walk away from your religion, that decision itself is hard enough. Telling your family about it or telling friends that are still in the religion, that's an entirely new layer that we don't talk about quite as much. One of the reasons that can be so hard for people, though, is because the emotional ties both to the religion and to the people in it are so strong. Religion itself is about emotion. It's about emotional responses to things. It's about the emotion that it can evoke in people. I mean, that's kind of the point, right? Religion grabs a hold of people and keeps people based on emotional responses. In fact, some religions, evangelical Christianity, one of them, really dissuades its followers from having a lot of logic applied to the religion in general. And part of the reason for that is because if people were thinking super logically about religion as a whole, they might not believe as much, as often, or as fervently as they do when they're just relying on their emotional responses to the things that are around them. Beyond emotion, you've got the culture of your religion. If your family is part of it, if your friend groups are part of it, if that is what your social circle is, there's an expectation of where you spend your weekends, of where you spend your maybe Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, where you give your time, what you do on summer vacations, who gets the significant portion of your free time, and then what do you do with it once you've decided to walk away? Because those people that you care about, your family and your friends who are still in that religion, are still doing those things. So telling your family and friends that you are no longer going to be doing those things with them is also a personal statement of choosing not to spend that kind of time with them, because they're still going to be doing that. And that ties so heavily into identity, which religion itself is very clearly writing people's identity for them. When your identity is wrapped up in your religion and you are walking away from it, the questions that you are going to get, like what are you going to do? What do you believe? Who do you see yourself as? Those questions are eventually going to come up either immediately or later. They will be asked of you. And how are you going to answer them? If you don't know how to answer them, that can make that conversation with your friends and family kind of difficult, if not downright scary. If you grew up in a family that sees religion as their cornerstone, your role in your family is tied to that religion. So once you leave, your role in your family has to change too. So if you are cast as like the good child, the eldest child, the youngest child, like whatever your role is and how that ties into your religion, like the youngest child gets away with asking ridiculous questions. The oldest child is the responsible one that helps sort of shepherd the younger siblings at religious gatherings and stuff. Like whatever your role in your family is mirrored in those religious gatherings too. So when you're not there, but you're still in that role in your family, how does that change your relationship with your family? I mean, you're not going to know until you do it, right? You're not going to know till it happens, but that can be so scary. The unknown of what that could look like is really responsible for some of the backlash that people experience from their families, and some of the reason why people don't outright say to their family, like, I just don't believe what you believe anymore. There's this term, lost, used specifically in Christian circles, and that term is used in a pejorative way for people who don't have like the hope and the direction of God, right? The problem is when you've grown up in Christian circles, you know that that's going to be a term that's going to now be applied to you. And all of the things that you used to think about people who have left the church, who have lost their faith, who have stepped away, or whatever you used to say about them, that's now you. And that's now what your family and friends are going to think of you. So all the assumptions that you've had about them, internally, you're going to be worried they're going to be thinking that about you. And in reality, you're probably right. Like, I don't know a better way to say that. You're probably right. They're probably going to think that about you because that's what they're taught to think. That's what the religion taught you, and that's what the religion taught them. And them thinking that about you hurts. So yeah, that's going to make it difficult to do. Telling your family that you're no longer religious is going to have an impact on your family dynamics. Often parents who are still in religion are going to see themselves as, failing, right? Either failing God or failing you or failing their job as a parent because you are no longer part of the religion that they have given so much time and energy to. I always find that such an interesting thing because as a parent, like, your primary job should be to have your child be an independent thinker and to be who they know themselves to be and to live more into that every day. And if that means walking away from the religion that they raised you in, then you should have that freedom to do that. But that's not the way religion teaches things. I get that, but that's how it should be. Parents who, especially in evangelicalism, are looking at their child walking away from church, they feel like they're losing their child to the world and they've failed their child is going to be lost to them forever. Like, what does that all mean? That dynamic between the parent and child can be a difficult one to navigate after that. The rejection of these things that the parents are holding dear feels personal to the parents. It's not necessarily personal. It's not about them. It's about you and you being allowed to make the choices that you want to make for your own life, but it's going to feel personal to them. If you've got religious siblings, extended family, especially that doesn't see you very often, your interaction with them may essentially turn into like attempts to reconvert you.
Have you spent enough time away? Have you thought about coming back?
If you've moved,
have you found a church or a place of worship near you?
From the subtle statements to the overt,
well, things wouldn't be so difficult if you would just come back to your religion.
All of those things are designed to bring you back. The thing is, when you're in a religion and it is everything that you know and everything that you care about, and someone who is so close to you walks away, you have to either make them the problem, and that's why they're able to walk away, or you have to take a long look at yourself and your religion as something that's possible to walk away from. What do you think most people are going to choose in that scenario? In the same vein of like family members talking to you about trying to reconvert you and stuff, is that phrase of
I'll be praying for you,
or the guilt trip of,
well, if you're sure that's what you want to do.
The idea that you making independent decisions is not an option because you've never made independent decisions before. You've always turned it over to God, or you've gone to them for counsel and you haven't this time because, well, you know their opinion's going to be like, what does God want you to do? And that's not what you're looking for anymore. Those conversations do further alienate the relationship. All of those parts add up to a very intense, very realistic fear of telling your family, I'm done with this religion, if you want to stay in relationship with your family. Coming out as part of the queer community it's a long journey. The understanding of who you are, the acceptance of that, what does that mean in the world, and how do you live into that, and then how do you tell your family? Like, that's an entire process, right? The process of understanding who you are outside of the religion that you have been raised in is not dissimilar. I'm not going to say it's the same thing, but it's not dissimilar. You have to figure out who you are, figure out why that label you've had your whole life doesn't fit you, figure out what that means for you for your future, and then figure out how to tell your family. And you do risk them not being okay with it. And if they're not, what do you do? Do you go through the motions and pretend? Do you let them catch up to you when they decide to? Do you stop talking to them because they're not going to accept who you actually are? You know, like, those questions are very similar questions. And so for people within the queer community who are also raised in the church, this is not just a one-time process. And it can be really triggering to have to go through this more than once with deconstruction and with coming out. So how to navigate this? First, you need to get clarity for yourself before you have this conversation. You need to be clear on the big pieces of what you do or do not believe and what you decide to share. So if you decide, I believe in this part of my religion and not this part, and I'm not sure about everything in between, that's fine. And you don't have to share any of that if you don't want to. People are going to ask. They're going to ask, what do you believe? What does this mean? What drew you away from your religion? People are going to ask those questions. That's okay for them to ask. Like, people can ask whatever they want to. You get to decide what you answer. You have no obligation to explain yourself to people. If you choose to, you should have your answers prepped and know how much you are going to tell them. The thing about leaving high demand religions, especially Christianity, is you have been taught for a very long time that you owe people an explanation, that you owe people your time, you owe them your rationale. You owe them a lot of things. And if you don't give that to them, then you are the one messing up. It is you that is the problem if you're not like an open book for them. That's not true. Like, that's not actually how it works, but it feels like that's how it works because that's what you've been taught the whole time. So because of that, you need to be aware of what it is that you do believe and don't believe so that you feel strong in what you're sharing, and then what you're going to share. Those are two different things. Last week's video, I said this initially as far as like religious deconstruction. I want to share this again. One of the things that I do encourage people to do is make 2 lists of 5, one list of 5 things that are objectively true, like name, address, name of your pet. I don't know, like things that you can't argue yourself out of. So not like I'm good at this, right? So things you can't argue yourself out of if you're like in an anxiety spiral. And then the other list will be 5 things that you know you believe. So they don't have to be pillars of a religion, but 5 things you know you believe. And honestly, that could be the sky is blue. That could be there's something out there, but I don't know what it is. I believe everybody should have the right to choose their own religious path. You know, like 5 things that you know that you believe. That can help to ground you when things feel like a lot of pressure. The next step is, when you've decided what you are and aren't going to tell them, is to establish your boundaries like a sentence. What is your sentence going to be? I'm not open to discussing that with you. I'm not going to talk about this beyond this point with you. We're not going to talk about that until you can be calm. This is my business and not yours. You don't have the right to ask that of me. Whatever is going to be your boundary setting sentence, figure out what it is and repeat it. Repeat it, repeat it, repeat it until people get it, because people are going to test your boundaries. So you have to hold them firm. Know when to stay silent. This is honestly something everybody can learn, right? Silence, as a therapist, silence is a great tool in our tool belts. We stay silent because when we stay silent, it gives our clients space to think and to process. And often, in order to fill silence, our clients will talk through things out loud that they're maybe processing inside and work through things in that manner. Silence is a great tool to use therapeutically. Silence is also a great tool to use to manage a conversation. You don't owe anyone answers. You just don't. If you decide to tell someone that you are leaving religion, you are doing them a favor as much as you are honoring yourself. You are allowing them to have information about you, so you can decide when to stop that. And if the conversation isn't going in the direction you need it to go, if somebody is not respecting your boundaries and you've asked them to a couple of times, just don't say anything. Just stop talking. Wait for them to get the hint. And the last thing I would suggest in this line of how to make this work is be prepared for grief. There is no reality in which leaving a religion doesn't come with grief accompanying it. When I say that, what I mean is you can decide to leave a religion, tell your friends and family about it. They can be great and supportive of it. You're still going to grieve because you're still leaving something that was a huge part of you and meant a great deal to you. And you're going to have to grieve that before you can move on. So whether that's what you're grieving, or you're grieving a relationship that doesn't look the same anymore, or the people you're talking to are grieving because of you leaving the religion, grief is going to exist in this process. How much of someone else's grief you decide to engage in is very much up to you. You get to decide that for yourself. I can't tell you what that needs to look like for you. But as far as your own grief, that's probably not escapable. But it's okay, because life doesn't actually have to be free of grief. That's unrealistic. It's about how we handle it and what we do and do not allow grief to do in our lives, and how we respect ourselves while we're going through that grieving process. Emotionally recovering for yourself after you've had these conversations. And just a reminder, just like coming out in the queer community is not just a one-time thing. Coming out as like, I'm not this religious person anymore is not just going to be a one-time thing. There's inevitably going to be people who think that you're still this person they knew who was wrapped up in this religion, right? That's going to happen a couple of times. But as far as self-care after some of those difficult conversations, you need to give yourself some space and some time for all of your emotions. That grief, relief, happiness, sadness, fear, whatever you're feeling is fine. You're allowed to feel it. You've gone from having this huge thing in your life that gave you direction and possibly purpose to having the disillusion of that change the way you look at the world. And if you don't leave time for that, if you don't allow that to sit with you for a while, how do you expect to be able to move forward into the way that you now see the world, or yourself, or your friends and family, people in general, like whatever? How would you do that then? Because you still have that huge amount of emotional scar tissue from what was removed, right? You don't have to do this alone. There are people out there, there are Facebook groups, there are Discord servers, there is now a community page on this channel itself where you can talk about what this process is like for you and have interaction with other people, or comment sections of lots of these videos that I have on this channel too. There are places that you can find like-minded people that have gone through similar things that can talk to you about how their process went. You don't have to do this alone, but it does have to be yours and your decision and your process. Independent doesn't mean alone though, right? Like, being independent and doing this independently doesn't mean doing it alone. If you are somebody who has left your religion and have told your family, or are thinking about telling your family and are working this process yourself, go ahead and drop a comment below about what has helped you. What are you working on? What's been helpful? What's not been helpful? What does that look like for you? And that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.